All right, I'm going to show you how to stitch up one of these plastic canvas crosses. And so these are the materials that we're using. I have a plastic needle, 5 foot of yarn, which really would probably be a little less hassle if you did this with an 8 or 9 foot piece of yarn, but 5 foot is what I have. So that's what I'm going to use. I have a couple of lengths of 5 foot yarn, so I'll end up working a second link in there in a little bit. And then these are the dimensions of the cross, and this is the plastic canvas. So this plastic canvas cross is just cut from a larger square. You can purchase various sizes and then cut out as many crosses as you need to, and you would just follow this pattern when cutting it. I'm going to start with the top of the cross. So I'm going to turn this around, which feels kind of like you're doing this upside down, but with my 5 foot length of yarn, it will ensure that I can get through this section as well as all the way across here before having to start with a new piece of yarn down here at the bottom. And so I'm going to start here at the top. Wherever you start, you're actually not going to start in a corner. So even if you chose to start from the long end, you wouldn't start directly in a corner. You're going to start in the second square on the bottom, in this case on the top, and I'm going to pull this all the way through, leaving just about an inch or so of yarn, and I'm going to hold that yarn in place on the back side, and as we complete these different stitches, it will eventually hide that yarn in there. So I'm going to hold that yarn in place with my other hand, and then I'm going to stitch diagonally. So there's my first diagonal stitch. I'm going to go up through the third box in that bottom row there, pull it all the way through, and stitch diagonally across to the side, and pull that all the way through. And I'm going to continue across the bottom, and then diagonally up the side. Go ahead and continue up into this corner here so that I can finish out that section down here of this cross. And I'm going to come sideways, or to the side, sorry, and that creates my diagonal. But notice this time I'm coming across here. Okay, so I'm going to this box across. I'm going to pull all the way through, going to the side here, going to the next box across, pulling all the way through, and then coming to this corner here and coming out, back down, and all the way through. So I've completed this section of the cross. Then I'm going to hold that in place, and I'm going to come up from this side over here. Notice I'm not going directly to the corner. I'm coming to the second square on the side. Later on, when we fill in the sides of the cross, that box will be filled in, and it won't be noticeable that you're skipping it now. So here I am. I've come out this hole, and I'm going to go diagonal again. And then coming up here and diagonal along that side. End of my yarn. There's not enough yarn here to continue over to the bottom portion. I would run out somewhere along the way, which could create kind of a gap in the back of it. And since I don't want to do that, I'm going to go ahead and weave this through kind of the back and hide it. But you can see there's the front side, nice and smooth and neat. if you look at the back side, it is also nice and smooth and neat. And so what I'm going to do to hide this tail is I'm going to hold it taut, and then I'm just going to take my needle and weave it through 4 or 5 of these or so. There's not an exact number that you have to worry about, but weave it through some of those and then pull out the other side and pull that tail good and taut. Okay, and then I'm going to take some little scissors and snip that off with my needle. Alright, I'm back after restringing my needle. You can start this either the top or the bottom, doesn't matter, but because I'm so used to starting with an open hole down here, I'm just going to go ahead and start here. Again, if you were still on the same piece of yarn, then you would be able to continue where we left off. I had to restring. I'm going to go ahead and start down here at the bottom. So again, leaving enough tail that I can kind of weave it in or sew it in. And I'm going to continue with my diagonals. Notice I started with the second box again, not the corner box. And I'm going to continue my diagonal. Fill in that blue portion and create a nice kind of solid looking pattern. And so there's that. I filled in the inner parts of the cross. The next step is to do a whip stitch all the way down the sides of the entire cross to complete the solid look. So I'm going to come up through this corner. You can really go any direction that you want, but I'm going to come around this corner here, and a whip stitch just means that you are going around that side piece of plastic. Up one hole, around, back under, up the next hole. Keep that in mind. When you get to the corners, you are going to have to go through that corner hole twice. That's so that you can wrap around excuse me, this side of the corner and the other side of the corner. So, wrapping that around, and now that I've got all of that done, I'm going to flip to the back side, and I'm going to take this tail and I'm going to thread it through 4 or 5, maybe 6 of these, and then pull all the way through so that it's held down, and then take my pair of scissors and snip, and there we go. There's the back of the cross, and there's the front of the cross. Both sides look pretty neat. Not a lot of mess. All the tails are hidden by the stitches, and that's how you make the canvas